Thank you, Debbie. Couple of announcements to begin. First, I apologize in advance. I forgot to bring any Halloween jokes. And second is we're not going to do any real heavy lifting in this presentation. I'm going to be just talking about the status of the budget, where we are in the budget cycle. And as Debbie mentioned, I'm going to hit on a couple of key dates that you need to keep in mind. I will say a few things about the 1782 notice, just as a reminder as we get closer to that part of the process, and a couple of points that you need to keep in mind as you go through your year end. As far as the updates, this year, for the 2015 budget, this is the first time in, I know, at least 10 years that we had an on-time property tax billing for all 92 counties in this state. And that's phenomenal, you know, for at least 10 years, maybe longer. There have been one county or a couple of counties that have been off cycle. So we finally got that up to speed. We are a little bit behind last year's progress, but we're still in good shape to be on time. We have 91 counties now that have rolled and balanced their real and personal property values for 2015, page 16. We now have 82 counties that have submitted their TIF neutralization forms. 81 counties have certified their CNABs for 2016, and we had 140 units requesting a cumulative fund tax rate adjustment for this year. A couple of key dates that we're working on is October 23rd is almost here, and that's the last possible day to hold the public hearing on the budget, rates, and levies. Hopefully you've all done that by now. October 30th is the last day that 10 or more taxpayers could object to your budget or the rates or levies, and that must be within 7 days of the public hearing. November 2nd is obviously the last day to adopt the budgets, rates, and levies, and the last day to adopt the income tax ordinances that would be effective for next year. And it's also the last day that a taxpayer could come to our department and request a public hearing in your county for the budgets. In the past, we used to drive to each county at least once a year to have a budget hearing, probably in your office, where we'd sit for maybe 15 minutes drinking coffee, reading the paper, and nobody'd show up. So we finally got the law changed so that if anybody asks for one of these hearings, we'll gladly drive out there and have it, but we just don't want to have to do it to all 92 counties because we couldn't touch that budget until we had that public hearing. And that could mean a delay of sometimes 2 or 3 or 4 weeks that were unnecessary. So, and that's one of the reasons that we got on time last year. November 4th is the deadline to submit the budgets to the DLGF. You know, by statute, there are 2 days that you have from the adoption to submitting. Well, the only time that we really enforce it is when we get to the November 4th. At that point, we're going to have to close Gateway so that we could start processing all this information. If for some reason one of your units, or if you need to reopen it so you can resubmit a budget, call our Gateway section and they'll take care of that for you. December 16th, that's the last day that you can submit to the department a request for an additional appropriation. Now that's for this year, or for an appropriation reduction for 2015. We have 15 days to process those, to respond to you. So obviously that gets us to the end of the year, and you want that back before the end of the year. January 1st, that's the effective date for the income tax changes that were adopted after August 31st, but before November 1st. Also, it's the assessment and valuation date for all tangible property except for the mobile homes. It's also the date by which an annexation is going to become effective, or at least it's going to be the values that you're going to be using, and for a reorganization if they want an adjusted levy for 2017. February 1st is the deadline for units to file their annual salary report. That's your 100R with the State Board of Accounts. That has to be filed before our department can approve a budget or even an additional appropriation. So you want to make sure that that's filed. February 15th, that's the Department of Local Government Finance. That's our deadline for certifying a budget, rates, and levies. So that's our drop dead date. March 1st, that's when several reports have to be filed by your units with the Board of Accounts. That's your annual report must be filed. And it also is the deadline to submit the annual debt report into debt management of any outstanding bonds and leases you may have. And it's also the last day for a political subdivision to report to the department, that's the DLGF, on your retiree benefits and any expenditures that you have. March 1st is the deadline for a solid waste district to provide an SB 131 annual report to the department. I have no idea what an SB 131 is or even what it looks like, but we have to have it. And it's also filed with your council and with IDEM. But why it comes to us, I have no idea. May 15th is the last day for you to prepare and deliver to the Auditor of State and the County Treasurer the certified copy of your abstract. I'm going fairly quickly, so we just might get you back on schedule. The 1782s. I've been stressing to all the units that I speak to, and that's all clerk treasurers, township trustees, libraries, solid waste districts, any unit that I talk to, I've been stressing, do not ignore the 1782 notice when you get it in the email. That's critically important, and it could mean the difference of make or break for their budget and your levies and your rates. That's your opportunity to make any corrections to a possible error that we may have done. We may have done something to the assessed value, maybe dropped a digit or something. But you do not want to ignore that when it comes. Units have 10 days to respond to the DLGF after they receive that 1782 notice. So you've got a very short time frame to work within there. I also try to encourage all units to review that 1782 notice and respond as quickly as they can. Because the quicker we can get all the 1782 notices back from each unit within a county, we can go ahead and process the budget order for that county. That means you get the tax rates earlier, and you can get them to the treasurer earlier, and you can start working on your tax bills that much quicker. One thing when you get your 1782 notice is I suggest that you compare that 1782 notice to the budget that was adopted by your fiscal body. I also like to pull out last year's budget order and compare those numbers, like the assessed value, the tax rate, the tax levy. Those really don't change that much from year to year, and yes, unless you've got a debt service fund, you know, and those can fluctuate dramatically. But those others, you're going to stay within usually within your growth quotient, so you're not going to see a lot of change there in most cases. So they should be fairly comparable. A couple of examples of where this would have helped. Every now and then, it seems like once a year, we have a unit call us up after they get their June settlement, and they only received a fraction of the tax levy that they were expecting. And that's because there was a mistake on their rate. They dropped the digit on their rate, or they got the decimal point in the wrong place. For example, they expected a tax rate of 0.1 on a fund, and they got 0.01 because they adopted or submitted the wrong rate. Well, at that point, by the time it's settlement, it's way too late to collect it. And in that case, they were only going to get 10% of the levy they were counting on. So that's going to be an impossible thing to fix at that point. Another one would be the levy. If there's a number, a numeric number issue with the levy, once it's certified, that's almost chiseled in stone. You can't, especially if it's settlement time, you can't change it at that point. Your tax bills have already been sent out, they've been paid. So you just can't change it at that point. You'd have to wait another year before you could get it corrected. So compare it to what your current rates and levies are. And I'd also take a look at the assessed values. There's going to be some fluctuation, probably within 10%, but it's not going to be a big dramatic change in the number, unless something spectacular has happened in your county. And again, responding to the DLGF quickly, that gets those rates, the levies, and the budgets out in process that much quicker. One other note I've got about the 1782 notice is make sure that you've got another email listed to receive a copy of your 1782 notice. Most of these 1782s are going to go out in December, but the majority are going to go out in January. And if you've been in Indiana for any length of time, you know weather happens in January. And it's usually not good around here. You know, it can be rain, snow, blizzard, sometimes all the above. So you want to make sure at least 2 people get that 1782 notice so that somebody knows to review it and to respond. We always have someone say, oh, we got the 1782 notice, but I was on vacation. Doesn't matter. It just doesn't matter. Once it goes out, the days are the counting starts. So we have to make sure that this keeps moving along so that we can get these budgets done. Any questions about 1782s? I know it seems simple, but it's something that's very easy to overlook. Something else that I was asked to talk about was the change of the assessment date. The assessment date is now going to be January 1 of 2016, forever and ever and ever. It's been March 1st, so we're moving it up 2 months. What that's going to do is there's going to be the effective date for the real and personal property assessment for the taxes that are due and payable in 17. January 15th, that's another date for the mobile home assessment taxes, or for their assessments. And then July 1st, that's where the county assessor rolls and balances the 16 pay 17 gross AVs to your office. Now, also on that January 1 assessment date change, not really sure if there's going to be any big impact to it. The idea behind this is to give more time for the county to get the assessed values certified. And I mentioned there are 82 counties now that have certified their net assessed values. Obviously, there are 10 that are still not done or that we're still waiting on. So this is an opportunity to give a little more time to get that done, hopefully on the timely basis. But it's going to change the base assessed value dates for your TIF allocation areas. It's going to have a slight impact on your annexations because that's the new effective date. Modernization, if you've got any units out there that are contemplating consolidating, that could be an issue for them. But as I mentioned, the intent's to provide the county more time to get those certified values out. We've prepared several memos about the change in the tax assessment date, and they're on our website, and I've listed several of the more important memos here for you, so you can go to our website under memos and presentations, and you can find these. You're welcome to print those off. And in fact, I'd like to tell people that the holidays are coming up right now, and if you go to our memos and presentations, you can go through and find all kinds of memos that have to do with budgets and taxes, and you can print those out. And at this time of year, you can use those for stocking stuffers, or you can pass them around to your employees and maybe have a little contest there, but they make fascinating reading. So, a couple of those year-end reminders that I had mentioned right at the beginning. The additional appropriations now and reductions, they're done on the same form. Now it's an official form. I mean, it's got a real state number and everything on it. So we have to insist that all of the additional appropriations or reductions are submitted on that official form now. And it's on our website, and you can download it in Excel and use it there. It's got built-in formulas, but it is an official form, and we have to use it now. Again, the additional appropriations, they have to be filed by December 16th. We will continue processing past that, but if you submit it after the 16th, there's no guarantee that it's going to get back to you by the end of the calendar year. Another note is we cannot approve a budget or additional appropriations for you if your 2014 annual financial report has not been submitted through Gateway, if your annual salary report has not been filed, and the certification of your anti-nepotism policy, which includes your contractual policy also. Those have to be submitted online. One thing I did not put on in my report here to you is the way the calendar is this year, the last, or actually January 1st is a Friday, or except January 1st being New Year's, a holiday, is a Friday. Many units, that's a payday. So what that's going to do for a lot of units is that's going to push payday up to Thursday, which will throw it into this year. So some of you may have a 27th pay period this year. Now that doesn't sound like much, but if you're paid bi-weekly, that's about 5% of your budget. You want to make sure that that has been appropriated if you've got the 27th pay. If it's not this year, it's probably next year. So go through and count your pay dates, if your pay dates are on Friday, and find out how you fall in that cycle. You don't want to wait until the middle of November and then find out you don't have that appropriated, because you're probably going to have to do some fund transfers or make some kind of an adjustments in order to fund that, unless you've got that much cash, if that situation applies to you. Some units aren't even paid that week. But when you get back, you might check to see if your pay cycle is going to fall into that cycle. It usually makes a big difference, and it's usually not discovered until very late. Then the last slide, that has my contact information. Many of you I am in contact with throughout the year. I know you get your TIF neutralization forms from me. You get your certified budget orders from me. If you have any questions, feel free to shoot me an email or give me a call. I try to be as responsive as I can and as quickly as I can. And I've got a few minutes left, I believe. If you have any questions now, I'll try to address them. Yes, we have one over here.
Hi, so if the new day, sorry, wake up everybody. So if the new effective date is going to be January 1st for assessments, why would they not change the date that the assessor rolls to us from July 1st to an earlier date?
I do not know. In fact, I have no idea.
That really should move forward as well, 2 months, I think. At least 1 month, split the difference.
I think that's a great idea. I have no idea why that wasn't done. Yes? Oh. Yeah, well, we're waiting. Okay. They'll bring the microphone out.
I requested an additional appropriation about a month ago. How long does that usually take to get approved from the DLGF?
You need to send us an email and follow up on it if you haven't, because they're normally processed and returned within a week.
Okay, I'll need to do that.
Yeah. Thank you. And right here.
Okay, this is a follow-up to the new assessment date. Will the deadline for certifying the net AV still be August 1st for county auditors to certify?
There was no change in the certification deadline, so it is still August 1st.
Okay, so I'd like to add my name to her urging that the rolling of the AVs be moved up, because that only gives us auditors a whole month, just 1 month, to do all the abatements and the TIF neutralization, and that's a lot of work in the month of July.
I used to work in an auditor's office, and I know very well how all those dates just kind of collapse right around July.
When a lot of people are on vacation.
Right, and it's at vacation time, you've just finished your settlement, and then all this other stuff hits. So it's an incredibly compressed calendar for a county auditor. Those are a couple of good ideas, but it's going to take legislation to change those.
In Gateway, we uploaded our ordinances for the nepotism and the contractual, and I'm wondering if that is going to suffice forever, or are we going to have to do that annually, even though it's the same old ordinance?
I'm going to have to let Board of Accounts answer that, but I think once it's submitted, it's retained there.
It will be rolled, unless there's a problem. If we find a problem, then we'll notify you then to upload something. Otherwise, it does roll.
I'm loud. Okay. What happens if, like, a clerk treasurer, if like a town does not have a clerk treasurer, what happens with the 1782s?
There should be someone else at that town or city to have it sent to. If they have not appointed a clerk treasurer, there should be a deputy, an assistant, or even someone from the town council should be getting that. But there should be someone there who's listed as the recipient for the 1782 notice. Otherwise, what happens with the 1782 notice and we have no response, we assume everything's fine. We're just going to go ahead and work with what we've got. Well, thank you very much. This has been enjoyable. They don't let me come to speak to county auditors very often. I don't know why, but